On the
Sure.
one hand, crypto was not regulated, so you have basically a house of cards of inside dealing and this and that. And when one card goes, the whole system is, as we're watching, collapses. But on the other hand, because it wasn't regulated, it almost protects the wider economy because, big banks that are very, very well regulated couldn't dip their toes into crypto and thus are
Sure.
not seeing the contagion effect here.
You've made it to Not Billable, the Lawtrades podcast that brings you bite-sized legal and business news updates, full event replays, and conversations with legal pros about what's going on behind the scenes every week. Stop the clock, put the timesheet down. It's time to get started.
The fallout from the massive FTX collapse earlier this month is now being felt in a second collapse. This being BlockFi. Now, BlockFi. So FTX was a crypto exchange, right? Just like the New York Stock Exchange. BlockFi was a crypto lender, right? So they would actually lend you funds in exchange for your tokens. But they were in trouble earlier this year. They got a bailout from FTX, and then once FTX fell, BlockFi was really quickly to follow, and now here we are with another massive, Chapter 11
Sure.
bankruptcy.
Unbelievable.
Yeah,
Unbelievable.
and the question is, how much further will this contagion go, and will it spread to more traditional banks and investment firms?
That's a fair question. I think I think it's been coined as such. Oh my gosh, the puns. But I think you've said this last episode as well. We are seeing a crypto winter because of FTX hand in BlockFi, and I think they also maybe provided funds to other companies that were similar. I think Genesis was potentially having problems, at least at some point. I don't know what their
They
status is
still are.
presently.
They are now trying to raise something like $250 million just to kind of save what's left. But
They,
if they go, that's one of the originals, right? They're from
yeah.
2013 or something like that. That's one of the biggest original institutions.
So you're seeing that. You're seeing this effect where because FTX, you're right, was playing. I'm not kingmaker, but they were playing stabilizer. They were playing stabilizer. Let's stabilize the market. Let's make sure that the market's still moving. You're right. When you get your tentacles into all of these different corporations, when one falls, the other falls because you're right. You're my lender. Or you're my whatever, my financial institution, or you've been providing me with a revolving line of credit. And once the credit stops, how do I fund payroll? How do I make sure that my liquidity is still at a certain point where I can cover my
Right.
liabilities? Now, that being said, I think now this may have just happened like a day or so ago. I think BlockFi is now suing FTX because of this loan. It's so there's this other wrinkle, which if you're a bankruptcy attorney or I think what do you call it? Almost like a recovery attorney within bankruptcy, you're going to go after FTX or at least whatever's going to be left for blood because you've got to pay off all of these creditors.
Yeah. Which, as we talked about last time, it's going to end up being like something like 1 million creditors for FTX,
Sure.
and the jury's still out, so to speak, on how many creditors it's going to be for BlockFi. Another exchange collapsed, I think, yesterday as well. Bitfinance. You have
Sure.
Genesis teetering. And there's rumors that, by the way, that Binance is not the strongest company either. So you have all
Oh,
the dominoes
gosh.
are continuing to fall.
Yeah, it's crypto winter again. It's going to be a very cold crypto winter. You will see obviously the effect in different financial institutions outside of crypto because so many people were heavily invested, right? Like Sequoia, I think is a good example where Sequoia just had to write down $150 million that they put into,
Right.
for example, in FTX. There are plenty of other VC funds or private equity or hedge funds that had investments within crypto that are going to have to write off those investments or explain to their limited partners, hey guys, like we're in trouble. Like we've
Right.
actually lost X amount of dollars. I even saw someone post on Twitter fairly recently, some group, hey, we had $100 million within FTX. We've recovered some of it, which I'm not even going to get into clawback because, right, we're not going to talk about bankruptcy law just yet here, but that money might have to go back to the bankruptcy. But those folks are like, look, the vast majority of the money that I had within FTX or whatever crypto exchange, it's probably gone. It's probably gone.
Yeah. And a little kind of note here that I found, amusing and in a pretty dark way is that I think in the middle of all this, something like at the end of last week, Fidelity, which is one of the largest investment institutions in the world, I think, just said that, we are now going to provide cryptocurrencies as a way to invest your retirement savings, which in the middle of all this was a wild announcement. Yeah, a wild announcement.
Which for them, at least they could say like, hey guys, like we're liquid. We're liquid.
But this gets back to a point that we've talked about so many times here, which is kind of the paradox of regulation. On the one hand, crypto was not regulated, so you have basically a house of cards of inside dealing and this and that. And when one card goes, the whole system is, as we're watching, collapses. But on the other hand, because it wasn't regulated, it almost protects the wider economy because, big banks that are very, very well regulated couldn't dip their toes into crypto and thus are not seeing the contagion effect here.
I think that's fair. There are some that did have the ability to jump in there, but that's a good example is like venture capital, right? Like venture capital can invest in these crypto coins, these crypto ventures, like whether it be an exchange or it's a special new coin that's coming out or BlockFi, which was a lender. You're right, they were touched, but some other institutions, because you're right, because they would have to disclose those holdings or because investing in it would cause an effect that would maybe, I don't know, would trigger some sort of SEC inquiry. Didn't do it, which you're right. Definitely, they look back, probably in the beginning, they were like, oh gosh, we could have made X amount of dollars. Now they look back like, wow, we could have lost X amount of dollars.
Right. Wild.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Check us out also on LinkedIn and Twitter to keep up to speed with what we're doing. Catch you on the next one.